Oh, and welcome back to the Ashby Bridge. I am so glad you're here right now. This is a vitally important topic about relationships. And if you remember way back last year, I talked about the love and relationships and how to have better relationships. And this year, I wanted to take a different spin on the quadrants and help you through some of the deeper, harder problems instead of talking about love and relationships. So many of us don't have the love and relationships that we really want in our lives. And that's not necessarily your fault, listeners. That is not your fault. So many people haven't learned how to work with us in our hearts. And today I have a very special guest who will really help you with the trauma. But before we go there, with all the awesome autistic individuals who are out in the world who are telling you what the traits of autism are, such as Paul Micallef in Australia, as well as Orion in Australia, Sam Stein in the Netherlands, Sarah Hendricks in the UK, Temple Grandin here in the US, and so many authors who tell you what the traits of autism are. The mission of the Ashby Bridge is a little different. This is a place where I, the torchbearer, who has lived through so many of your relationships, and we call that the content of my life is a curriculum for helping you. that's the way we say it in our organization. The content of our life is a curriculum of our evolution, which means that I take all the challenges that I've had and I invite wonderful guests onto the show to become bridge builders. Jina has joined the bridge builders to connect you, the listener, with anyone that you would love to connect with deeper for your own personal situation. I often found that as much as the information is helpful, we always have that special what if my situation is different scenario. And I know I experienced that, so I can only imagine that you do too. And so, what you would do is come to the Facebook group page called the Ashby Bridge, find Gina's picture, and say, Gina, I have a question, or would you be willing to sit down with me for 30 minutes of volunteer time to help me and see if my situation is different? That goes for all of my guests that I've had on here. Any guest that you have a question for, you get 8 bridge builders, and they each will give you 2 hours of time, volunteer time, because I know what finances are like for you. Volunteer time to help you find a solution to a problem you're experiencing. And remember, you're not the problem. You're not going to be fixed. Your challenge will find a solution, but we will not fix you. So, at that, let me introduce you to my wonderful new friend, Jina Carvalho, and she will tell you a little bit about herself and how this hard topic of trauma has entered her life and what she has done to help others work through theirs. Welcome, Jina, and I'm so glad you're here today.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. I'm really honored to be here, and it's a pleasure to work with you and your energy and to support your mission of bridge building, which I feel is my mission in life too. A little personal history to the people listening. I'm an immigrant. The bridge that I traveled was as a child. I was born in Portugal. I was raised in Portugal by my grandparents. By a series of poverty and circumstances, I couldn't be raised by my parents. We immigrated, so I had to adjust to another country. I did not speak the language when I went to school. It was very traumatic. I understand what it's like not to be heard, not to be seen, to be ridiculed, to be shamed because I was different. And through the years, I was able to develop my own sense of self. The traumas continued as they do in life. I had relationships that were good for a while and then transitioned. I have a son, a child, and 2 granddaughters. That's been a real bridge in my life. I've been able to communicate with my granddaughters and build a relationship with them as an elder in their lives. And I would say there's hope coming from a broken family of no resources, lack of contact, to now being able to bridge the relationship with my own granddaughters. Professionally, I've been in the field of mental health for 45 years. I started working with teenagers, troubled teenagers with all aspects of trauma. And then from there, I went to do a lot of crisis work. I would help people who were in crisis, trauma, loss, and help them through that. Done a lot of work in the field of suicide prevention and postvention. So helping families before there's been a death by suicide or after. So I'm very familiar with that. In the work I've done in mental health, in all aspects of healing, I've had experience and a lot of community bridge building. I formed a trauma response network that responds when there's been a trauma in the community of any kind. Our volunteers go and sit with the person and help them through that using psychological first aid, mindfulness, breathing, heart connection.
Mm.
So I have attended large traumas, fires, the mudslide we had here in California. I'm in Santa Barbara. So I've had experience with people who have needed bridges, who have needed help up from being down. And I can tell each and every one of you, there is hope. There is always hope. And I love to build that bridge of hope and resilience in people. So that's why I'm here with Suzanne to share my knowledge with you and hope I can help you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is such a major topic. And I had to tell you, listeners, I'm going through it pretty much right now myself. And I say that because not every moment of every day has to be sad. You can find pockets of joy. And my podcast is a way that I bring pockets of joy to me because I love to help you. I love to take, as Jean Guardiola, which is another one of the personal development people, says, I've taken my mess and I've turned it into a message because I don't want to see you go through it if you have not yet gone through it. Now, Jina touched on a very important topic that I really want to kick this off with because, there is a statistic, and I don't want to see anyone be part of it. And I'm right at that age level right now where this happens. And I can see, I've experienced how parts of my life could have taken me down that road if I didn't have other people I wanted to live for. I have 2 beautiful daughters. One's about to get married. So you need to focus on the good things that are coming up instead of the now. Yeah, maybe right now is tough. Allow yourself grace. Allow yourself to find a special person in your life. Now, I have found a special person in my life that has helped me to remind me what my positives are. And that's helpful. Sometimes you can go visit them. Sometimes you just have to even look at a picture of them to know that they do care. Now, that may sound woo-hoo to you, but I have found that when you surround yourself, even with pictures, yes, the real person would be very helpful to sit there and hold your hand. Very helpful. But sometimes a picture is not bad. I just spent a weekend watching a conference and Jina was there with me, and I went to the conference even though I saw it 19 times. I went to the conference because this is where my comforting people are. It's the BTI Dream Builder Conference, and if you ever want an opportunity to go, I can help you get there. But anyway, it was a way of me connecting with the people that really brought me back. Now, what topic am I talking about? Suicide. The national average is 50, at the age of 54, there have been so many individuals that are autistic that have committed suicide because they don't know who else to turn to. When you're in that situation where you have a family member, a spouse, a neighbor, or someone who is really challenging your emotional regulation, I can see how that could be hard. And as Gina was talking about hotlines, and if you don't want to call a generic hotline, there's me and there's Gina. Now you'll have two people that you can really connect with that are not just a voice on the other side of the line. So, Gina, I am so happy to have you here. This is such a crucial topic. I'd like to start out with, how can someone know if they're just having a bad day with someone, or if they're in a case of trauma-related relationship?
I think that one of the most important things you've touched on, if a person has lost any sense of hope, hopelessness is a really one of the strongest measures of someone being deeply traumatic and losing faith in their life. If you notice the hopelessness, that's really, like a red flag. But what you said was absolutely correct. Surround yourself with loved ones. Always have, they even have a little toolkit. They call it a little toolkit, but in your bag, you have a person you can call, and you put that name down in the phone number. Music that you could play when you're feeling really, really down. That lifts you up. The picture of the loved one. The things that comfort you, food that you love, things that your pet, the things that bring life to you. And when those moments hit, you realize, oh, I have that, I have that, I have that. I'm not alone. And I know hotlines can be problematic to some people. We just were able to get a 3-digit hotline called 988, like 411 988. I work with 988. It's just a good number to have, and they will help. If you're a family member, you can call. You don't have to be you can just say, I'm worried about my sister. What should I do? They have a lot of resources. And know that nothing is permanent. I have worked with so many people who've made attempts, have survived, and they say, wow, I'm so glad I'm here. I'm so glad I'm here. It's not the end of the road. Believe me, every moment I tell people, it's like the waves on the ocean. They keep coming. They go up, they go down. That's our emotions. Our emotions are in our body. They're not permanent. But if you don't have that person like Suzanne is sharing, my loved one, the person I can reach and say, I need a little love right now. Nature is also very healing. I turn to nature a lot to replenish myself. I don't know if I answered your question fully, Suzanne.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'd like to touch on one
I
thing.
also want to say something
Yeah,
else
go
that
right
I
ahead
forgot
first.
to
I
tell
want
you.
you to go. Yes.
I recently lost my husband. I've recently in the last year lost 4 of the most significant relationships. And it was hard. And it's hard. I loved my husband. We were very good friends. And it's been a year. And I just want to say firsthand, it's not that it gets better, it becomes more familiar. And the initial shock of, I don't know if it's someone feeling, okay, my life has changed. What can I do? I could just offer you can get through anything. I didn't think, how would I get through this? And I did by surrounding myself with others, by doing counseling. I really believe in therapy. I had the right therapist to help me, and doing the things I suggested so that we all struggle. You're not alone. We all struggle. And some people look like they have it all together. Don't buy it for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Those people on social media and on the news that look all together, they're not.
No, and we know as autistic individuals, because we're right there too, masking.
It's a mask.
It's a
You are
mask.
no different. We're all humans living this imperfect life,
It
doing
is.
the
It is.
best we can, love each other.
Now, I have two tie-ins I'd like to put in with that. One of them is music is my go-to. Oh my gosh.
Me too.
And
Soon
part
as
of
I
my
wake up.
music, yeah, part of my music is Joe Dickey's music of follow your dream. This is the moment you lift me up. And standing right beside me are the four songs I put on at night because my mind at night. I mean, when during the day we can take a walk, we can go here and we go there. But at night, I find that because you're in one position and you're trying to get rest for the next day, if you go to bed and let all those ideas keep coming back and back and back, if you find a playlist that you can put on loop, and don't worry about your neighbors, you're not going to be playing it at rock concert level. It
And you
might
can
even
always
help
use
them
headset.
too. Yes, yes. So I find that I will put on his music and other songs along with it to remind me of the good. Now, the other thing is that not too long ago on my own personal profile, and I know Gina may recognize this song, I wrote about Tears of a Clown, which is a Smokey Robinson song, which talks about and I'm going to really touch out to those of you who are neurotypical, which means not autistic, not ADHD, not challenged, but you have someone in your life. Don't be fooled by a smile when you know a situation hurts. And that's theoretically what the song is all about. Just because someone is smiling does not necessarily mean they're okay. And what I want to add to that is, and I've found this a number of times for me, and I want to say thank you to those who did take the time to reach out and say, I've got this. You've got this. You can do this. But I also want to caution you that that sometimes doesn't help us. The actual, let's go for a walk. Let me call you. Let me take you for a cup of coffee. The physical action behind it is just as important because what we discover as autistic individuals is that people will, well, let me just say, words start to become empty when there's no action. Words become empty. Someone can say, I love you all day long, but if they're going to manipulate you or do something else to hurt you, I'm sorry, and I love you, start to lose their meaning. And so, action. I always tell people that words of affirmation are beautiful. But if that's all you're going to offer me, I'm not sure I can trust it if I've gone through a trauma situation with someone who uses those words and thinks that they're okay. I'm sorry. I love you. It doesn't have to be like this. And you're like what? You start to lose a feeling of what those words are about. So I ask you, if you see someone who's smiling, even though you know that they're hurt, reach out to them physically, please. So let's go on to our next one. Okay. Toxic or narcissistic? Is there a way that I don't like labels, but I do want my listeners to know the difference because they do sound a lot alike. But at the same time, I think a toxic person may just be mean at times because they haven't been taught how to be different or they've heard it from their families. And so they think that the words are okay to use. Whereas narcissistic is purposely going after your identity and harming your identity and your feelings. So we're going to pass this over to Gina now to help us understand this better because I think the word narcissistic gets thrown around a lot more often now. And so people don't know when someone's just being mean, but they really don't mean to be mean, versus when they're intentionally trying to be mean. And that brings in gaslighting. So go for it, Gina.
Yeah.
Help us out with that.
Well, I want to take it back to what you said, which was right on. Um, we've all been hurt. Let's take it down to the base level. The narcissist, the toxic person has at some point become what they are because of trauma and pain. That doesn't excuse their behavior. That does not excuse how we act. We take responsibility, but we always take it down to the human level. Something went wrong, somewhere. Okay. So with that pain, a toxic person is someone whose interactions with you make you feel bad. They're toxic. They've got residues of bad stuff. Like you feel when you're around a toxic person, you don't feel like Suzanne smiling and uplifted. You feel brought down. You feel kind of dumped on. You feel like it's not a healthy situation where you feel like you can grow. So if you trust your gut, if you're around someone and you feel bad after you've been around them for a few times, that's a toxic relationship personality. My understanding of narcissism, it's a very difficult, it is thrown around a lot. And I understand it to be someone who's so self-absorbed that the way they were damaged, they do not see the world beyond themselves. Everything comes back to them. You start a conversation with them and they go, oh yeah, that's like what happened to me when I was 7 years old. Then you talk, oh, and that's my problem. And it's always back to them. It take from that myth of Narcissus, the narcissist who fell in love with his image in the pool. The narcissist is in love with themselves, but at the detriment of having other relationships. That is not, the narcissist needs love too, but they are so in their own experience that they can't see beyond that. And that could be very hurtful, as Suzanne's saying. Is it hurtful? Yes, because if you're a narcissistic mother, your child doesn't get seen, it doesn't get loved. It's all wrapped around your life. So it is very hurtful. Both of those situations are hurtful. And there's more people working effectively with narcissistic personality disorder. There's more work being done that's effective. It's a very difficult thing to treat, but not impossible. I don't think anything is impossible. But the way they were damaged or whatever hurt them has made the loop go like this. It's all back.
Generational. Yes.
Often generational. And my friend's writing a blog, which I love, calling Narcissists Need Loving Too. But they're hard to, they're harder, they're more challenging. But I just am trying to live in a world that I know Suzanne lives into, a world of compassion and love. And I don't have to be around those people if they make me feel bad. But I'm not interested in hating them. I'm not interested in judging. I'm just saying I choose not to be with you because it doesn't make me feel good.
No. Oh, that is a perfect segue into what we're going for. And yes, generational abuse
Generational trauma
can often start a vicious cycle. And it's up to each one of us to break the chain. Break it. And I did. And I'm proud of myself because I said, and we have this expression in our organization called you live by design or you live by default. When you live by default, it means you're going to take every behavior that was cast onto you and cast it onto your children. Right or wrong. Right or wrong, you're going to cast, and the loop keeps going, as Gina says, it keeps going. but you can live by design, which is what I decided to do. And actually, I did this long before I even knew this organization and Mary Morrissey were a part of this world. Because when you have an ache in your heart, you don't want that ache for anyone else. If you're not narcissistic, if you are, well, or toxic, maybe you don't care. But I said, no, I don't want my girls to endure what I endured. And so I wanted to take it from there. Now, there are two kinds. I found both kinds of narcissists, Gina, in my life. My mother is what they call vulnerable. Those are the people that are so hurt and calling for love, but they don't know how to change. But then sometimes they think it's okay to act that way. And I think that's where the distinction is. A toxic person might say, you know, I was kind of mean. I'm sorry. Whereas a narcissist might be like, this is the way I grew up and it's good enough for you. So deal with it. Deal with it. And that is one kind. My spouse was a grandiose, which means that he was more of narcissistic because he was overcompensating. And this is the trick. This is the key thing to remember. A grandiose narcissist is someone who's overcompensating for an insecurity within themselves. And we were talking about this with Cindy Payne last week in the last session, is we don't realize that bullies and narcissists are actually more insecure than we might be. And they need to find a way to push you down so that they can feel better. And that's the key. So I've had experience with both of those. I have survived and walked away from my ex, who we actually have a good relationship right now. We even celebrated the year after anniversary. So you can find a way of compassion to say, I understand now what you went through. And that disempowers their power, their hold on you. Now, a vulnerable narcissist, because they have a little bit more that comes from their past and they think that's the way they were raised, so that's the way you were raised. That's a little bit harder. I'm not going to lie. That's where I have had my greatest strength, my greatest challenges. And I'm going to talk about the word manipulation. Yes. Manipulation is when there is something that is used to give you in place of what I would consider love. It's a way to hold control over you so that you behave in such a way that serves them. And manipulation is difficult. Let me give you a classic case. We're about to go into Mother's Day. I have a choice. I offered my mother the opportunity to go out for lunch. She chose not to go. Now, I can feel guilty and say I'm not coming then. Because what she was trying to do is get me to go to her no matter what. There's no effort when someone is manipulating you. There's no two-way street. And so when you find a situation where you don't have a choice to bring love to a person, that can be manipulation. But maybe Gina can explain it even better than I just did.
Yeah, it's when we use a word, the manipulation is an interesting word to use. I know what you're getting at. The person is using everything to get you to do what they want, right?
That's the best way to say it, right? Exactly.
If we just say that and take manipulation out, because manipulation carries with it a lot of judgment. Again, I'm not condoning the behavior. But if we take the judgment out and say, your mother doesn't want to respond to your invitation for lunch, and that's hurtful. That's a rejection. That's a rejection. She rejected your invitation. She wants you to do what she wants, which is to go see her. It's such a good example, by the way. It's a great example. You want her to go and see you. Right or wrong, good or bad. Let's, if we take the manipulation out and say, you both want different things. You want to acknowledge her on Mother's Day by taking her out. She's saying, I don't want that. She's saying, I want you to come here. And you can say, hey, thank you. I see that you want me to go there, but I don't think that that's a good fit for me. I don't think that's what I'm going to do this year, or whatever. You have, as a sovereign being, a decision. Is she manipulating you or not? I don't know. But it seems like she wants you to do what she wants. And maybe that's the way she's been most of your life. So you don't exactly feel seen, and you don't feel like your invitation was recognized and accepted. So we feel that, and then we decide. Because ultimately, a manipulative person, a toxic person, or a narcissistic person, we choose how we want to be and whether we want to be there. We have choice and power.
A situation not too long ago was we were supposed to get together for another lunch outing, and I was a little tight on time, and she said, why don't you come here? And I said, I don't choose to do that. We'll see each other next time. And so, but that wasn't Mother's Day. So there is a factor of guilt that can come in. Talk to us on how to override that guilt, because I know there are a number of people who are out there being like, if it were any day, I could just say, forget it.
Yeah. Well, I think it really does come down, Suzanne, to how we care for ourselves. Guilt will often get us to do something we really don't want to do and makes us feel bad. So really comes down to, how will I feel if I don't do this? Will I feel worse? Guilt is hard because sometimes if you don't do it, you're going to beat yourself up for 3 days, then go and do it for or, is going to make you feel so bad that you'll feel bad for 3 days. So you have to look at, how can I feel guilty if I go? I feel guilty if I don't go. Where am I going to feel the less pain? And it comes down to that, because sometimes there's a no-win, especially with families. If you go, you feel terrible. If you don't go, you feel guilty and terrible. So you really have to ask yourself, where am I feeling less pain?
Now, you bring up an extra interesting point. And are you familiar with the term flying monkeys? And I say this because I listen to Dr. Ramani Diversiva and a couple of others, but she's the main one. And a flying monkey is an enabler to someone who is treating you poorly. And so I had a situation in my life this past December, and while they helped me get out of it, they put strings attached that said, we're not going to help you if you don't see mom once a week. That's a manipulation. And it is something that you like, well, I need the help, but it's going to make me feel bad. And so you go back and forth. Vacillate is the word I like to use. You go back and forth. Well, I need the help because I'm autistic and I do need that family support, but I don't want to feel badly. How do you handle a situation when a family enabler imposes a condition on you in order to get the support you need?
Yeah. it's very difficult. Each situation is so unique, Suzanne, each family is so unique. There's no universal answer, but I think I'd come back to the same situation is like, you have to put your mental health first
Mhm.
and your peace of mind first. And some situations you have to do things that are very difficult. Like you think, I may have to give up that money that I really need in order to not do that, or it's more important that I support myself right now. That's really important. And I will do that, but I'll be very good to myself and I'll take very good care of myself in that situation with the family member. Take someone with you or do some mental health clearing or do some things so that you're in a really positive state when you go. If
Mm,
you're going to do something, then do it with power and go behind the conviction of your decision and say, I know it's going to be tough, but I can take care of myself and I'm going to be okay. And do whatever
that's
you need.
that's great. One of the things that she actually says, and you can use this, and I think I've said this in one of the other podcasts, treat yourself. After you've gone through this special activity that has not felt too good to your heart, say, you know what? I've been wanting a new pair of sandals. It happens to be almost summer. I've been wanting a new pair of sandals. Now, we just talked about money being a challenge. So sandals may not be the best example, but an ice cream cone, a simple ice cream cone, might be something that you can say to yourself, you know what? I did well. I was hard and I went against what I really needed, but I did well. So I'm going to treat myself
Mhm,
to
mhm,
something small
mhm.
to say thank you for following through.
That's such a good suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you help us understand the difference between PTSD and CPTSD?
So I'm not as familiar with, I know that PTSD is often seen post-traumatic stress disorder. As after a major trauma, we have the reenactment sometimes by, the classic is the vet that comes back from the war and he wakes up in the night thinking he's in the war zone. The trauma is there and it's relived and it's debilitating because you really feel like you're there. The other term you call, is that a cognitive therapy?
It's complex
Complex
PTSD,
PTSD.
which I
Now,
can give you my meaning and then you can exaggerate.
yeah,
You
I
can,
think that what
yeah,
happens is it usually has a comorbid, it has another diagnosis with it. It's complex because it's not just the trauma itself, but there may be a psychological component as well to that. Is that correct?
that
Uh,
and it's repeated behaviors that continue to, you haven't, you, and I
resolve.
like to say you haven't quite healed from the last event
And
and
then,
the behavior is
right,
happening again. And
yes,
you
that's
just
correct.
about get to the point where you finally have healed and it happens again. So
Yes,
that's
you're
what
right.
I've understood it to be.
Yes, you are right. And also you are correct on that. And I'll tell you where I'm experiencing it is in grief. Because I lost my husband and then I lost my dearest friend and then I lost another friend and just this week I lost another one. So each time that I experience, I'm re-triggered to the original loss of my husband. And that's what complex PTSD, complex grief. It takes you back and then you have another one on top of it. Now, again, I have found for me, I've done EMDR, which has helped me with visual trauma and events
Mhm.
that were very traumatic. So there are treatment modalities available to help with this. But you're absolutely right. It's just one trauma and then on top of another and another, and you just keep reliving
Yes,
in that
yes.
state. Yeah.
Okay. With that being the case, let's talk about why some people may feel that even though they have someone in their life that they can't necessarily walk away from. Most likely it's a family member, but it
Mhm.
could be a spouse too. And sometimes um the grief, as you say, there are two kinds of trauma and grief. And grief can be a living grief, and it can also be a passing grief. So dealing with someone who's passed who you don't want to pass, but life comes to an end. And what I want to say is there are some times that we do need to stay with the person until their final days, even if they hurt us. And can you help them understand a way? I have a term I'm going to introduce in a moment, but I want to see if you bring it up first before I say it. Can you help someone understand the best way to stay involved with a person that may not be the best for their mental health?
Mhm. So to stay in relationship with a person who may not be a helpful, that actually would be a toxic person in your life, or um, uh, where there be maybe trauma in the relationship? Is that what you mean? Why would you, how can you stay in that if you need to stay in that for,
Yeah, well, let me give you an example. We're
yeah,
just talking about money,
yeah.
support. Some people can't leave because of support. Other younger people who have children at home
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
take their children out of the home because
Well,
there
how do you,
is
yeah.
a toxic person
uh,
that they are living with. Now they're going into what might be a worst case situation that is not even advised. So they
Exactly.
must stay with that person, even though they're hard. What are some coping
Yeah.
mechanisms that we
Yes.
might be able to offer that person?
Yes, I think that's such an interesting thing, because we also have to look at when it gets to the point where it's dangerous for the person. You don't want to be in a situation that is dangerous to your well-being or that of your children, your physical, and also if it's extreme emotional abuse. You do not want to stay in that situation. And you have to turn to people to help you navigate the financial aspects of that. I just feel like that's important to say. But if it's a situation that's just not healthy, but you have to stay in it, I think, and to survive, I think it's very important, as I learned, to really take good care of myself and put my mental health first. In that situation, I found each day that I had to do things to increase my sense of well-being. Every day I did things that made me feel good so that I could sustain my energy. You have to sustain and maintain your energy. And that's
Mhm.
community, caring for your body, the joy of nature, if it's mindfulness, all the self-care that you have to do in order to be present in the
Mhm.
situation and not abandon yourself, and know that you've made a choice to be there. I made a choice to be and watch my husband die. That was a choice. Was it pleasant? No. And like you said, would I rather have not done it? Yes, I would rather have not watched this man die. But I chose to be there. And when I chose to be there, I chose to be there fully as myself and take care of myself so I could be there. So that's what I would recommend.
That's amazing. And that brings in that wonderful word of boundaries. And I
Yeah.
just went through this. I lived with my mom for 4 months. And can you find boundaries within the same household? Yes. Yes, you can. And I did. And this is what I did. I am a crafter, a needle pointer, actually, a cross stitcher. There were times that I knew what her good times a day were, and I radically accepted that this is the way she's going to be throughout the day. I knew what her routine was. You can radically accept the person without accepting their behavior. And I knew that when I got up in the morning, I could safely go out to the breakfast table and we'd enjoy a cup of coffee. Was it the best cup of coffee? Sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't. It all depended on where her attention was and what her topics were on her mind. That's why I call it radical acceptance. You understand that this person is in your life. You may or may not have had a choice with this person being there in the case of a family member or a spouse if you can't leave because you have children. So you radically accept them, even if you don't accept their behavior. And when you know that they are triggered to have bad behavior, that's when you need to seek a refuge to another part of the house to do something that fills your heart. And I would cross stitch. So even though mom was sitting in the living room right outside the bedroom door, just having that boundary of you choose, I radically accept you to choose that behavior. I'm going to go into another room and choose my behavior. And that is the way to have a healthy boundary within the same home. Now, they may get upset that you're not spending undivided attention because they like to sometimes have someone that they can have that emotional punching bag. But you have the power to decide whether or not you're going to give them that opportunity. I got to a point where I said, no, I'm not going to give her that power. Every so often, I would go back out to the room to test it. Every so often, it was fine. We would watch a show we could both enjoy. Or Sunday night, we would watch one of my favorite shows together. That doesn't mean the behavior is going to go on all the time. You radically accept that this person doesn't know how to change their behavior patterns. And you learn to watch, observe what times of the day you could safely be with them and what times of the day you need to separate, which is what I did the third and the fourth month that I was with her. What would you like to add to that, Gina?
Well, I'm very impressed with your self-knowledge and your awareness and your honoring of yourself. That was so wise. I called that when you're talking about the cross stitching, I have a little place in a little part of my house that I call my sanctuary. And it's where I have almost like a little altar, and I have pictures of people I love and precious objects, and I have incense, and I sit there and I feel at peace. And that's where I would go, just like you did in your room with your cross stitching. So wise. And I love what you said about radical acceptance. I know that work. I know the work of Tara Brock, who's done the book is beautiful, and it's really worth pursuing, reading that, the radical acceptance. And that you're right. You accept the person, not the behavior, and you're making it work for you and creating a situation that's healthy for you.
Thank you for your
Very wise.
validation. It's my curriculum. And if I didn't go through it myself, how can I really help my listeners to know that you can come out of it? You can come out of it. I'm now in my own apartment again.
Yeah.
And the night before we started looking for the apartment was an incident which you find very enlightening. And you might even be proud. When I was a young girl and my brothers were growing up, the attention was placed on them fully. Athletics, academics, you name it. The attention was there. I was expected to sit at the dinner table and keep my mouth shut. Well, there was an incident that came up not too long ago where I decided to take my power back. I decided to be part of the conversation. As a young girl, I didn't have that power. I didn't feel I could get that power. This particular situation, I took my power back. And you know what happened? Someone didn't like the fact that I took my power back. So, the thing is, you need to know yourself. What would you like to grow into? Do you want to stay that little girl that? And I think my mom thought I was still 12 at that particular moment. Because no matter what I said, she barked at me as if I was saying something terrible. When my brothers were like, you're just adding to the I'm like, just adding to the conversation. So anyway, you need to know when to take your power back. You need to know that you have a right, you have a worth. And no one can tell you to be quiet. And these are things that you can grow up through and go on your way. Am I still dependent on her financially? For the time being, up until now, as we say, up until now I am, but I am now taking steps forward to get back on my feet, so I'm not doing that. Right now, we call that up until now. That is what's happening. When you get back on your feet, you do everything in your power to find your joy, to find what matters to you. Yeah, they're going to have a bunch of expectations that they want you to do, but you have to decide. You get to decide, not have to decide. You get to decide what you're going to do. I have a family that would love me to work full time. I know what I'm capable of doing, and that's the other thing. Know your capabilities. They haven't lived your life. You have. You know what you can do. Don't let anyone push you to the point of autism burnout, which is what happened the first time for me. And I said, no more. No more. You need to take back your power. And if you can't take it back yourself, and I'm going to say this, and Jina, you and I were talking about this earlier. Some of us who are autistic do have a problem with the phrase reparent ourselves. Because we do have those special emotional needs. We need someone to help emotionally regulate us. Yes, we can do some deep breaths, but sometimes you're at that brink of hopelessness, as we talked about at the beginning, where it's like, I don't see light at the end of this tunnel. That's when you need to get help. That's when you need to get help. Go ahead, Jina. I'd love to hear you add on to this.
Yeah, I want to. I think in closing, I wanted to just share with you how much I've been moved and have respect for you and the way you speak with authority of your personal journey, because that's the most powerful thing. We learn through stories. We learn through each other's stories. And I really appreciated what you said about personal power, because you said taking our power back. And I say, we've had power, we've given it away, and we've stopped giving it away. Don't give it power. Taking it, but I think what I feel I'm trying to learn in my life, Suzanne, on my journey, is I'm going to hold on to it. And I'm going to share it where I want to share it. I'm going to give it where I want to give it. I'm master of my life now. And that's what you're saying. You're empowering people to be masters in their own life. Brave thinking masters. Right?
Brave thinking masters, for sure.
To be brave, as you are, Suzanne.
Thank you. I've had some great teachers. In closing, I wanted to. I'm sorry?
And now you're a great teacher.
And now I'm a great teacher, yes. In closing, I want to extend to each of you to allow yourself a day of grace or more than a day of grace. Because sometimes when we get to that radical acceptance, we need to also accept that that person will never change or unlikely to change if they don't feel that there is a problem. Now, not everyone wants to grow.
Mhm.
Not everyone wants to grow. They may think they're fine. Sometimes we have to grieve a relationship that's not going to improve and walk away or walk to our boundaries. And that is a day that you need to give yourself full grace. Because if you push yourself, that's when autism, burnout, and exhaustion take place. And let me tell you, it's a lot harder to get your emotions re-regulated if you're at that point. So I want to say thank you for coming today. If you have any questions, reach out to myself, reach out to Jina on the Aspie Bridge Facebook group page. We would love to help you. There is no reason why you need to feel alone ever again. We're here. So thank you for coming to the Aspie Bridge. I have a very interesting one next week, which I think Gina will be even interested in. I have a woman by the name of Edith Tavs, and she's going to be my guest for a program called Picking Up the Pieces: How to Survive and Thrive After You've Lost Your Spouse. And because that's what's happened to her. That's her message to her. That's her message from her mess. But she never really allowed it to be a mess, and I'm so proud of her. So this coming Tuesday, you will meet Edith Tabs, and she'll be doing Picking Up the Pieces: How to Move Forward After the Loss of a Loved One. So thank you for coming to the Aspie Bridge. Any final words, Gina?
Well, thank you for having me, and I look forward to your next guest because that's what I'm going to be going and what I'm going through. So, thank you for having such wonderful guests on, and thank you
Thank
to
you.
everyone listening. And
I hope everyone has a great day, and reach out for help if you need us. The Aspie group page, Facebook group page, you are welcome to come and meet everybody who's been my guest. Thank you so much.